clams and conch shells full of squids and beer battered turkey. We're talking about beef today. And those are also meats. Because it's a joke we do. Beef can mean several things, including a dispute or debate. Or I can't.
Which I suppose
what would I say?
That's more central to what we're talking about.
Right. But I want to talk about meat.
A heated feud between adversaries.
Thank you.
It's one answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's Brian Vaughn coming up with one answer for beef. Spencer Hendricks, come up with another definition for beef.
Sure. Well, I remember when I was first introduced to beef in my younger years when I was more of I'd say a fine diner.
Sure.
And I learned what beef was when they said, "Sir, how's the beef Wellington that you're eating today?"
Oh, this is when you were like 6, 7, and you were like, "I'll only eat at Michelin star restaurants."
Yeah, I think that's when the phase started. I stomped it out by my teens.
Sure. You're like, listen, unless this is cooked by Wolfgang Puck, I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm, of course, Van Lee. We are the Boob Tube Boys, along with Spencer and Brian. We're talking the second episode of Beef on today's episode, the Netflix hit Emmy Award. Not Emmy? Yeah. Wait, no. Emmy?
All of the awards.
Just a lot of awards winning show. It's a lot of fun. When we're done with the first episode, we're ready for the second one. This one is called The Rapture of Being Alive. If you missed last week's episode, I recommend you go listen to it because we discuss the cast, how the show is formed, and of course the first episode. So if you don't want to do that, all right, whatever. It's your prerogative.
Maybe they've watched all of Beef and they're like, I don't want to hear what they have with the first one.
Yeah,
I just
tired
want to go straight to the second one. And then if so, we're ready for you.
I have a strict anti-pilot policy. I don't watch them. I don't listen to podcasts about them. I throw myself right into the deep end and try to guess at what happened before.
You know what? Real question here. Do shows do pilots anymore?
I think you have to pitch something initially to get greenlit, right?
But like, for example, in the 80s or whatever, they might make a pilot that may not see the light of day to test. Sometimes they put it in the air, sometimes they don't. And then if it works, great. Maybe they continue with it. Maybe they adjust it. Maybe they don't pick it up at all. I don't know that we do that. I think it's now you sell your story, they commit to the thing, and then they make the show.
It's definitely both. There's a lot of that. Like you have a development deal and they're just like, we're giving you an X episode order. And then there's also the pilot thing where people are trying things out. I've never listened to this, but I've always been very curious. But there's a podcast called Dead Pilots Society.
Oh, that's a good one.
I like that.
Where essentially actors and comedians line read pilots that did not ever air.
That's awesome.
And like, I mean, they have, I think Patton Oswalt does one. Like it's pretty famous comedians. But I've always wanted to check that out. Think it's a good idea.
Well, don't go do that now. Finish listening to
Boob Tube
ours.
Boys.
That's right.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that up top.
Well,
that sounds interesting.
Once they've cleared the whole Boob Tube Boys catalog, which is rich and full and has a lot and fat.
It's thick with 2 C's.
It's got a lot of not lean meat, fatty meat. I couldn't think of that word on the side. Like it's grizzly, but there's a lot of it and it's pretty good.
And you want to gobble it down.
What can I ask is beef Wellington, by the way?
Oh, I don't know.
It's an English food.
I think it's like a fancy sort of country club that someone like James Bond would eat beef Wellington. You know, it's not something that anyone that we know would have ever had.
It's beef from New Zealand, obviously. Wellington.
I really don't know. It just, when you wanted me to have some kind of comment on beef, it's what popped into my head. I got nervous and I thought beef Wellington. It's happened to everyone at some point.
Interesting. Well, we might have some more talk about meat beef later.
Real quickly, I want to see it. Can you I want to look it up real fast. I want to know what I just referenced.
Let's talk to the listener
and brought
about beef Wellington.
into the lore of Boob Tube Boys.
It'll be a little bit of visual storytelling done through an audio medium.
Oh, it's got like a bread surrounding it.
So it's like a bit of a crusted bread.
So yeah, it's got like a bread around it.
It looks like they didn't cook it.
It looks incredible.
I'd eat it.
I wouldn't.
Do you think there's a sauce you put it in?
Yeah.
Could be like an au jus.
It's coated in crepe or dry cured ham to retain the moisture and prevent it from making the pastry soggy.
So it's a pastry crust. Yeah, that is interesting.
I'd eat that.
Now we know.
All right, well, we may have more beef discussion later when we talk about our meat hierarchy. We'll see. Maybe the three of us don't have beef on our meat hierarchy. Come on.
I mean, I don't know how deep we're going on the rosters, but I would assume we all do.
Top 100, of course. All right, well, let's get into this episode of Beef. This one begins right where the last one left off.
I want to start.
Okay.
Amy storms back in her house, mad at Danny's piss.
He's pissed everywhere, and he has fled the scene in his truck, flipped her off. There's yellow liquid, viscous liquid covering the rug floor.
It is viscous.
It's gross.
I think Danny would have had to have squeezed that out. It's so thick.
He was aggressive when he shook the rest out. You know, you got a little bit at the end, you got to shake it out. He waved it everywhere.
I don't know that I've ever heard necessarily the phrase like thick ropes of pee,
You have now.
but that's what those look like.
Well, and look, I typically don't like to start off my shows with a clip. I like to have nice little patches of us discussing before an audio clip, splits everything up, but I have to.
Yeah, we've already talked.
And this one deserves to be heard. Basically, this is Amy, Ali Wong's character, going nuts.
Shit! Fucking bitch-ass handyman pissing on my fucking hardwood floor! This is European oak, motherfucker! Is your husband home? No! I'm home! Fuck you! Cocksucker piece of shit!
Amy threatens a bird with her gun.
Oh, yeah,
which
the whole
is
time.
Incredible.
She is stomping through her giant, beautiful, rich person home. She's waving her gun around. She arrives in the solarium and sees like a crow up on the roof. Of course, the sun's shining through. Screams, shut the fuck up at it. And then she just stomps into the piss-covered bathroom, whips out her phone, looks up the license plate of Danny, which she's memorized, finds his construction business on Yelp, and calls the number listed when Danny picks up.
It's called At Show Service, which is a really good name.
I like it.
There are a lot of good construction names here.
Yeah, they keep coming up with them, those shows. I really liked this, and it kind of parallels Danny's moment of being alone and yelling in the truck on the way to Amy's house that ended
They're so
the last
similar.
episode.
They have so much in common. Do you guys think the crows will remember having the gun pointed at them?
Apparently,
That's what corvids are capable of.
they are pretty smart. I would love
are.
to befriend a crow.
And they have very strong memories.
Here's the problem, because they can recognize people from one another. They're that smart. I would have to be outside a lot more to befriend a crow, and that's not
Right.
going to happen.
Well, I don't know. Can you get it through transference from watching The Crow?
No, because I would have done that. Yeah, I've seen that movie a bunch of times.
Have you?
My sister was a big Brandon Lee fan.
Oh, she is the exact right generation to
Yep.
be a Brandon Lee fan.
Yeah,
Well, not
she
anymore.
was-
She
well,
isn't.
no, but it was a tragedy for her personally.
Sure.
When Brandon Lee was struck
The
down. in
1-2
filming
of
The Crow.
Brandon Lee and Kurt Cobain within just a few years.
Yeah,
That's a Gen X
it's a
nightmare.
rough time.
And that is genuinely terrible also.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make light of it.
Right, of course.
But, it's been 30 years, whatever. This is a podcast where we talk about butts and poops
And beefs.
and beefs.
Oh, never mind. I was gonna use your butt beef thing that you did, but it
Yeah.
came out all fucked up.
Beef
so.
that comes out the butt.
Yeah.
I got to make a beef. Yeah. Amy does ask Danny on the phone if he has any idea who he just fucked with, but he says, okay, bitch, and then just hangs up on her. She redials the number, gets his voicemail, and this just sets her off. She's so mad that he didn't answer the call. She points her gun at the phone, screams violently in rage, and just as she does, George steps around the corner to see his wife with the gun just raging at the phone while standing in a urine-soaked bathroom and says, babe, what happened? We then get the episode's title card, which, as I mentioned last episode, is placed over one of David Cho's paintings. They fill out the rest of the 10-episode season. It's all his paintings for the title cards. And returning from it, we find ourselves at Danny's apartment pool, where he's grilling up some thin cuts of beef.
Whoa.
You understand?
Yeah.
This is meta. And he's feeling super satisfied with himself. He's almost smug. His brother Paul is busy doing dumb guy stuff in the pool, while Danny mentions that it turns out the dude that had the road rage incident with him is actually a chick.
This is two kinds of dumb guy brothers enjoying dumb guys. Like, they're just grilling their little steaks by the pool. One of them's just swimming and floating around, and the other one's trying to pretend he's tough.
And of course, Danny comes up with the very deep thought, sometimes rock bottom is your trampoline, which I think that's a Carl Jung, right?
He believes, I like that that's recurring. We believe everything is the, psychologist Carl Jung's idea.
Danny's phone dings while he's getting all philosophical here, and he finds out he's just gotten another 1-star review on Yelp.
Because it had not occurred to him there could be a consequence. I love how victory lap this whole thing feels to start.
Oh, yeah. And we see over the screen that it's from Amy, of course. And her review says, if you need an incompetent handyman with no skills, and then it says, P.S., he pissed all over my bathroom, 1 star. And I don't mean to say it's a 1-star review. It is. It says the words 1 star after being a 1-star review, which I appreciate because she's angry. She's just typing furiously.
And honestly, nothing she said there is false. He is not a good handyman, and he did piss on her floor.
He posts a response to that review saying he's never met this woman and continues to spout sage advice to his brother, who is currently in the pool, busy pretending to be dead, doing the thing where his head's underwater and he's got his arms up floating like a child would do.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
And Danny continues saying, if you see something you like, baby bro, you just got to go take it. Meanwhile, a young hot girl in a bikini is coming down towards the pool, but she looks out and sees Danny and Paul, rolls her eyes, sighs, and goes back to her apartment. And this is all in the background.
This is so good.
Her
It is such a
face
good touch.
of disgust is perfect.
Because you know she's had interactions with these two assholes.
And she's like, oh, this will be relaxing. Nope. And Danny, it's right as he's in his crescendo about going and getting what you want. She's like, oh, this guy is spouting his philosophy by the pool in the afternoon.
And Danny asks Paul what his life plan is, because Paul is obviously super confident that he's got life all figured out. Paul says his plan is to go take a shit and then go play ball. Danny says, no, I mean, what is your life plan? What do you plan to do for the future? And Paul says, well, once you give me the crypto passwords back, I'm going to become a crypto millionaire and travel the world with his boys.
Yeah.
He goes on to explain how simple it is. This is very easy, guys. You do 3 10x trades, 1K to 10K, 10K to 100, 100 to a million. Boom.
That simple.
Yeah, it's no problem at all.
And I got to be honest, I hate this fucking crypto
This
bro
is like
shit.
the business triangle.
It really is. And that is something no one will get.
No.
But it is accurate, 100%.
It's a dumb thing one of Van's old bosses told him about how to make money that makes about as much sense as this.
He just drew a triangle. He was drunk and he aligned through it. And then he listed people in the business and he said, that's how you make money. And that's exactly what Paul is saying here. I hate crypto bro shit. However, to be fair, the show is saying this is stupid.
Yeah. And it's also saying another thing potentially, which is there is no stock market for people without a bunch of money.
Nope.
But people like Paul might be like, well, I can invest what I do have into this. And because it's so volatile, it might shoot up enough that
That
I
was
get
the draw
something.
for me. That's for sure. But this was years ago, back before it is what it is now.
Look, I edit podcasts for different people occasionally. I do outsourced work in that regard. And I have done editing for these kind of crypto bro, dude bro podcasts. And they're obnoxious. And they say dumb shit like venture capital and founder. And it's all these titles that
FOMO.
they completely ignore the fact that you have to step on and cause people to bleed and die to make your money. And those aren't people. Those are just employees. They're commodities. Who care? And I hate that shit. I fucking hate it.
More to the exact crypto point that I would like to also make is that having investigated it thoroughly, there is no actual way to intellectually make money off playing it like a market. It's not. It can't.
It's so volatile.
It can't function in a predictable way, which again gives people an entry point. But what this has done is it's created what you're talking about, Van, which is a market for people to profit off talking about a thing and analyzing a thing you actually can't predict with any reasonable level of certainty. So there exists this market of gurus for something that you cannot really be a guru of.
Let me tell you this. What the fuck's his first name? Hold on. Jeff? No. Kramer.
Oh, Michael Richards?
No, not that Kramer.
Oh, Jim Cramer.
Jim.
Oh, that
yeah,
idiot.
Mad
yeah.
Money guy.
Yeah, just Jim Cramer. That guy exists and he should not exist. Like he is always wrong. John Oliver proves he's always wrong.
Those
It's
John
dumb
Oliver
shit.
montages
they're
of
great.
him are delightful, though.
Mhm.
Danny actually has a telling moment in the first episode where he walks in on Paul fucking with the crypto and he's like, well, you can take your money and gamble with it. He describes it as just straight gambling.
The
in
show
that
is mean
first one.
about it, which
Yeah.
is accurate.
It's aware.
hmm And this is a bit of a tangent that I'll continue going off on. But there's a push, you've mentioned it in several recent episodes, Brian, that AI is everything. Everyone's got an AI program for this,
Right.
AI for that. And podcasting is no stranger to it. For example, I'm on the Reddit podcasting subreddit, and I give advice all the time and listen and chat and all that stuff. But people are constantly posting. It's at least 4 or 5 times a week saying, here's my new AI tool that'll solve all your podcasting problems. I want you to use it and blah, 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 blah. And it's always the things like make clips for you automatically or give you show notes and liner notes. And we have a tool that automatically runs through each of our episodes. And I simply don't use it because it's garbage. AI cannot figure out nuance, tone, subtlety, sarcasm, humor in particular. But what it can do is handle those tech bro, black and white, things are what they are stuff. So those shows, if you have that kind of show, and you run it through, for example, an AI note thing, it'll probably give you results that work.
Right.
But our show simply does not. Most shows do not, because AI can't. It's not a human brain.
What we're going to have to learn is that it is an analytical tool, and we should not use it as a creative tool.
Correct.
Now,
but people are doing that.
Because analytical people now own the creative domain in this country, though, that's not going to be how it goes. So my friend Mike, who listens to this podcast,
Hi, Mike.
He tries to reassure me about this, that there will always be space for the true creative people. It will be the sort of lazy creative people who get absolved by what AI can do anyway, since their thing can be replicated. So, for instance, a musician who uses auto-tune and samples. Well, AI can do that.
Yeah.
But someone who uses their own personality and listening history to inform what they write, that exact thing can't be replicated, much as our podcast relies heavily on our mutual million years of friendship. And that can't be created by a robot, man.
No way, man.
Or at least, I think we all need to believe that, or else it's really hard not to go limbing off a cliff.
Well, and I think the negative, what we're going to see is that, again, we bring up Elon Musk as a shitty target all the time.
He's the biggest, shittiest target.
He really
right now.
is. But he's a guy that wants to be creative. He's not. He is a tech brain guy who's brilliant in whatever regards.
In a way, the sad tragedy of his life is all he wants to be is a guy who's at a party and 5 people laugh at a thing he says at once.
But he can't
have that.
He's an idiot. But also, those are the guys, the CEOs, the people who step on people to make their money, and they want to be creative, so they create these AI tools, and we should be using them to make creativity easier. We automate the work so we can play, but that's not how society seems to be going. So I implore all of you out there, please, for the love of God, try not to use AI unless absolutely necessary.
Let it make you a spreadsheet.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
Don't make art with AI. Don't type a Ninja Turtle pooping a lot. And look, I'm guilty.
Hold on.
Wait, that sounds cool. No, I'm guilty of this because when the AI art tools first came out, I thought it was hilarious.
When it first came out, yes, it was fun for like 2 seconds. It's
but I
a
moved
joke.
on, and now I will not use it.
It's not something you were never trying to pass it off or anything, though. And that was always just the comedic value. And yeah, long since, and now I am appalled at the idea of using it to generate anything.
Well, and we've even done the voice AI. Well, I should say I have. You guys didn't sign off on it. Doing the Kevin Sorbo jokes.
Wait, that wasn't him?
I won't do that anymore. I'm done with that. Even though I made fun of Kevin Sorbo and it was funny and all that, I'm done with it. I don't want to do that ever again.
I like that. I like that you came to that conclusion.
Yeah, I moved past
it was a fun thing to do, but like there is a bit of a weird uncanny valley there. And it's like, even though it's Kevin Sorbo, I don't really want to appropriate him for our usage because we're like better than using, even like at the time I didn't think this, but it's like the longer we've had to deal with AI, like I don't want to take any of his intellectual property, which is a hilarious thing to say.
Intellectual. Can we use a different word?
Anti-intellectual property and use it on our podcast because I almost don't want him having any piece of this or AI having any piece of this.
Sure. And, if people want to call me out, you used it. Great. Call me out.
Yeah, we did.
But I'm past it. I'm done.
Because this is the thing. Who cares that we used it? The thing is learn from stuff.
Own up to it.
We've made a lot of dumb mistakes. I mean, I can't even get into the dumb mistakes we've made on this podcast.
It's a quickly shifting landscape, so I can see not quite getting the full gauge of what it is to a certain extent. We're well past that point now. Anyone who's reasonable recognizes it's evil and stop.
Yeah. And last point of contention, we'll move on back to beef, is the argument you see and this is mostly with AI art, is, well, no one's going to pay anyone to draw that, then it doesn't need to be made.
The problem is no one will pay for art in general because we're a culture conditioned to believe in commerce above all else. Yeah, man, this is very on par with something we always talk about.
Yeah, it really is. But
and with the show Beef.
Drives me nuts.
See, this show's opened up a lot of new avenues for us, or opened them up wider, because we have talked about this before.
And you know what? Every time you do that, every time you use Ninja Turtle pooping from a butt and put it in an AI generator and put it up and say, oh, no one paid for it anyway, you're normalizing it. You're making it to where the people who don't think about this see it and don't question it, and that is negative. So stop.
Right. And it's for that reason that I am going to begin, I pledge from this day forward to begin sketching Ninja Turtles pooping. I'm going to get really good at this.
And you've got an easel in your house. And
yeah, I'll be known for it. I'll be like the Monet of that.
I so wish that you would. I want a new Instagram account for it and everything. I seriously want this to take off now.
All right. Well, anyway, back to beef. Danny does call Paul out on all of this the whole crypto thing, the 100 to 10, just saying numbers. And that's exactly what Danny says. You're just saying higher numbers. But Paul also gets Danny back and says, what's your plan then? Because Danny doesn't really have one. And also, this steak is mad overcooked, which kind of made me laugh. Danny gets another 1-star Yelp review. However, it says bad plumbing, bad breath.
Which is so petty and stupid that I can't help but love it.
And it cuts to Amy. The scene does. And she is the most smug, I got that fucker good look on her face, just like he had when he pissed everywhere. While she's busy spamming his Yelp page, George is on his hands and knees cleaning up the bathroom. And Amy says, George, you shouldn't have to clean up another man's piss, all while not helping him at all.
Yeah, it's great. The George and Amy scenes are really, really good at depicting their dynamic, which is why when they later are a little bit more tender to one another, it's effective too, because you're like, I didn't know about this part.
There were several scenes with George and Amy where I was like, I could not fully decide how they felt about each other deep down. Like I was really unsure, and they gave us such a deep look at that.
Yeah.
It goes down so deep, like deeper than even the 10 episodes could get into, where we really have to think about it.
I feel kind of similarly about Danny and Paul as brothers.
That's fair, yeah.
And I think that that's such a good, like, they did not make these very straightforward relationships.
Well, you can see the facade, what they put out there, and understand it, but you're still wondering, okay, but how do they really feel? And they dive into it over the course, but there's still so much more there.
They almost make us, the audience, know that anyone in the world of this show sees George and Amy and thinks they're perfect, but we as viewers think they're the worst thing ever. So they almost have to feed us slowly moments of good while they feed the characters in the show slowly moments of bad, to where it evens out so everyone sees things for what they really are.
Well, and there's a lot of ebb and flow in this show. Characters, you'll watch them for a bit, you'll be like, wow, this is a good guy, and then they'll turn around and do something horrible, and that goes back the other way. The pendulum swings constantly.
And their fortunes constantly, one good, one bad, and then it's changing throughout, and they hit such extremes the whole way, and that was fascinating to me.
All while George is cleaning up this piss, he starts asking questions about the whole event.
That would make a person rethink things.
He says, well, this might be a bladder issue. Maybe you're not thinking about this right, Amy. And maybe you did something to set him off, because you can come across as a bit cold at times. And Amy says, George, he was running away smiling, flipping me off. This was intentional. She does say at one point, for $80, we can find his address online. And he goes, well, what do you want to do? Go over there and wave your gun around? She gets defensive, but she does get George on her side by revealing that, he didn't like that you were Japanese, because again, there's that cultural history there, and this works. George eats it up. He's like, okay.
The scene just ends with him looking up from the piss with a determined look, which is pretty funny, because we've only up until this point, I think, see George look very vacant.
Well, the scene cuts to the two of them in a motel complex in a less ritzy part of town. We'll say that. The two notice a bunch of kids watching them, but Amy rushes over to the motel and begins peeking through room windows.
I was all about these hoodlum kids from the second I saw them.
You like
three
them?
Little kids that are just staking out territory to do no good. And you know it right away.
George incredulously asks her, are you enjoying this? Because she's giddy when she's scampering around. But she finds what she thinks is the right room. Again, they're looking for Danny, and says, look, that's the back of an Asian head if I've ever seen one. And we see the back of the head. And it's just a guy with dark hair.
Back of a guy's head.
Like you can tell from the back of someone's
Danny.
head.
And that's what we can tell, is that it's not Danny,
like
clearly.
Very clearly, even from the back. And she's met him and talked with him for a long time.
And George says, okay, what's the plan? Do you want to just talk to him? You met him first. And a guy just comes up behind them and says, howdy, love bugs. It's the manager of the motel, and he continues asking, hey, do you want a suite? And don't you worry, I'm not going to ask you any more questions than that. But the two wave him off, saying, we're not looking to stay here. But we are looking for a Daniel Cho. Amy begins to describe him as a Korean guy with a real oily way about him. And as she does, a very Caucasian man comes walking out of the apartment or the motel behind them. And we see, obviously, that wasn't an Asian man. She has to skip a beat, though. She just keeps going.
Didn't look entirely dissimilar from a young Robert Forster.
That's true now that I think about it. The manager reveals that he took over the place from the Cho family about a year ago, because the police shut the place down after an illegal goods raid. And Amy keeps focusing on the son that they keep saying and says, he kind of sucks, right?
It's kind of a sob story, and George is picking up on that and feeling it, because he can't empathize with anyone that's not Amy. But Amy, meanwhile, is like, yeah, okay, I know, sob story, but he sucks, though.
He's a piece of shit, right? Well, and George is flabbergasted that she is being so not quite malicious, but intent on getting her revenge at this point. Meanwhile, Danny is unloading boxes out of a van alongside his cousin Isaac, and they say a bunch of car stuff. There's like V6 and, yo, nice taco.
It's a lot of pissing contest stuff. No, well, I shouldn't say that with Danny because it might
He already won that contest. It turns out Danny is letting Isaac store his shit at his place, and Danny tells Isaac that it's going to be a bit longer before he can pay back $20,000 loan, as we find out. I initially thought he was just giving him 20 grand.
He says that.
So?
He says, I'll give you the 20 grand in the restaurant, which this is the Isaac thing. He keeps adding conditions. He does it in this scene.
Yeah, it keeps changing. But Danny says, yeah, it'll take me a bit longer to pay this back. And Isaac says, okay, why? And Danny says, well, you remember that road rage thing I told you about? Turns out it was a woman, and I pissed in her bathroom, and now she's giving my business bad Yelp reviews. Isaac says, okay, it's fine. Take your time. No big deal. Because we do see Isaac kind of be cool. More often than not, particularly early on, that changes. But he also asks Danny, oh, well, is she hot? And so Danny just gives Isaac an explanation about, as we know, Amy.
She's some rich bitch from Calabasas. You know, she's probably sitting at home all day eating like baguettes and jam or some shit.
Fire rich, it's exactly what I do. It's sit around, eat baguettes, and jam and some shit.
I think it rules that, again, he's associating wealth with being French, like he did in the car before.
Bonhomme. Isaac does tell Danny this is where he pivots. It's not a big deal. You can pay me back whenever. Just give me the title to your truck now. I'll hold it for you.
Right after Danny convinces him that his truck is good. Because Isaac entered the conversation like, your truck sucks. It's too bad he didn't have this better one. Danny defends the truck, and then you can see Isaac being like, maybe I want this now.
Well, yo, taco, nice truck. Isaac tells him about his business, though. Just start a new one. You know, put my name or something. Who cares? Danny asks why these boxes are heavy, by the way, as they're moving him into his place. And Isaac says, oh, they're full of laptop batteries. I got a friend in Busan who sells them wholesale. This is obviously a big red flag because this guy made them lose their business for selling counterfeit baby formula.
Isaac has a Bob Sacamano somewhere.
Oh, definitely.
But Isaac does assure Danny, this is all legit. I'm paying tariffs and shit.
That line was really funny. Tariffs and shit, which is what he says.
Amy and George then go back to their car and notice that their tire's been slashed, and they suspect those scamp kids that they were looking at them earlier. And George says, look, Amy, this is all your fault. And he goes to change the tire. Then he just kind of stops because obviously this guy doesn't know how to change a tire, and she doesn't either. So one of the kids pipes up and goes, hey, I'll change the tire, $40. So they pay him $40 to change the tire.
Hell yeah, get back at him.
Good scam by these kids. I like it.
These little rascals. It also, I forgot to mention this earlier. When they pull up to the motel, Amy has a line when George says, I don't think he probably lives here because, it's a motel. You wouldn't think that offhand. And Amy says, well, I don't take him for a homeowner. That's a real pride of being a good person. It makes you right away be glad when these kids get revenge.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing, too, is a point of contention throughout this series is that the home that they have, Amy and George, is that she bought it. She renovated it. It's her house. It is a very moment of pride sort of thing for her.
And it is a mansion that is impossibly nice. Mm-hmm. And George and his mom have a lot of complaints about it.
Danny and Paul are now working out at their outdoor weightlifting area at the apartment complex, just like this is Baywatch or something.
Yeah, this is just like the pool. I love how all their activities are the broest things you can do.
Oh, yeah. And they try to one-up each other constantly. Danny tells his little brother he's thinking about starting a new business with Paul as a full partner, if he's interested. And as a show of faith, he's going to change the crypto passwords back. Paul agrees and says, man, I got some great ideas. So Danny's like, okay, what are your ideas? Paul immediately says, we'll call our business the Cho Bros. Again, pretty good name.
He's right. It's a great idea.
Danny's into it. He loves it.
Did you guys like how Danny gives a lot of unsolicited weightlifting form advice to his much more jacked younger brother?
And then is like, come on, Paul, keep up. And Danny's barely doing anything. Paul also says that they should target Orange County Koreans, and they talk about Danny's ex-girlfriend, which Danny says he wasn't quite ready to settle down when they were dating, of course, because, and this is going to be repeated ad nauseum, had to focus on the business. It was all about the family. He's putting that first, but in reality, we know he's just using it as an excuse.
Mm-hmm. Just a shield to do whatever he was going to do anyway.
Paul takes his shirt off and then takes just the most douchebag muscle boy selfie by the pool you've ever seen, while still harping on the idea of targeting Orange County Koreans. We shift to Amy at her house, and she's sitting here with a woman named Naomi, whom we saw at the Ritzy Rich party as the sister-in-law to Jordan, the super rich lady who owns Forster's. Apparently, June, the daughter, had a tough day at child school and hit one of the teachers. And okay, kids are weird. That's what they do. That's fine. It's fine. No big deal. No questions yet. But Naomi tells Amy, okay, don't beat yourself up over it because, in fact, my daughter Izzy, who's in the background playing with June, bit their neighbor's dog.
I laughed out loud at that when I first heard it. Just surprised me.
Naomi's joke was kind of funny, too. It's usually the other way around, right? But this got me to thinking, I guess kids are biters. There are biter kids.
They don't
right?
know at first.
Were you a biter, either of you?
I don't know.
Not that I know of.
I was not a biter.
No one mentioned it, so probably not, or else I think I would have been told.
Well, Katie, my girlfriend, told me her sister was a biter and would bite everybody up until the moment where like their babysitter bit her sister back. And so she learned
Holy
biting
shit.
bad and quit biting. And I do remember Tanya Foster biting me in, I think, 2nd grade on the playground. I hope that bitch is dead.
Now, do you think it's possible that Tanya Foster was a Dracula?
Oh, shit. No, because she went for the
No,
arm.
because you didn't turn into one.
No, she would have gone for the neck.
And if it was at school, it would have been daytime.
True.
It would have been a lot more of a dramatic story if she'd bit you on the neck.
Blood everywhere.
She did draw blood. I remember being bit.
That's a hard bite.
I'll never forget.
What's her name again? Tanya?
Tanya Foster.
Oh, she's mean.
We went to school forever.
Tanya, if you'd like to defend yourself against
No.
these allegations.
Please leave us a 5-star review and explain why you bit Van.
And we'll get a tattoo of Tanya Foster.
You already had one, and she gave you a
That's
tattoo
true.
on your arm.
I have a scar somewhere. I just hope her life sucks now. She bit me.
I know, I get it. It's kind of how I feel about Travis Kaiser for all that, just being annoyed by him for a year in middle school.
Was he the one that ran away from school just one day?
No, that was Thomas Mann.
Oh, that's right. Of course.
Ran off into the distance. If any of you are listening, just again, leave a 5-star review and explain yourselves.
We'll let you bite us. Well, anyway.
We'll let you run away.
Amy and Naomi hit it off here, and Amy asks her if Jordan will be mad that she rescheduled their meeting because of, June punching her teacher. And Naomi tells her, no, but also don't tell her that it was a family thing. Instead, say it was work-related because Jordan is awful and you have to choose your words carefully.
And I didn't realize until I watched this the second time that Amy and Naomi don't really know each other.
Yeah.
They just had met because they are neighbors, but they weren't aware of it.
And they hit it off really well.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be a friendship. It doesn't turn out that way. Amy tells Naomi she's jealous of Naomi getting to spend all day at home with her daughter. And Naomi gets really defensive, saying, well, I don't just spend all day at home with my daughter. I also do super important things like I have my nonprofits and I write. And also Jordan comes to me for business advice. And this is such, I hate my life as a housewife, so I got to make things up that.
Every single character in the show is defensive and very insecure about who they are and what their station is.
And of course, Naomi brings up this wild road rage video she saw on Nextdoor. And, oh, Amy, have you seen it? And Amy goes, is that an app? Boy, is it. Naomi shows her the video again and says, I just can't believe how people are this angry. And of course, it's a video of Amy being angry. Amy busts out the line, well, anger is just a transitory state of consciousness, which is something her husband said previously. That means absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah.
And Naomi eats it up.
Which is the same as saying any emotion. Sometimes I'm angry, happy, they're all transitory because they change.
They're not
Imagine
permanent.
if they didn't.
I got angry once and I still am.
Yeah, you'd be fucking Bull Beast from Dungeon Explorer if you were always near and mad.
You can only go diagonally.
Was that him that was near and mad?
Yeah.
Not the tiger.
And not Gutworm.
What was the tiger? What did it say about him?
Everything was fine until the tiger moved in.
Any of the people we talked about earlier, if you'd played Dungeon Explorer, also leave that in the review. Note that.
It was for the TurboGrafx X something or other system.
So everybody's played it.
We bought it on Wii in 2007
Mhm.
and spent 3 evenings playing the stupid game. And you were right, Spencer. Warrior was the best class.
Yeah, it's one of my more treasured moments
This
in
is
life.
the kind of stuff we learned in college.
Danny and Paul are now out in Orange County. Represent!
Was Jack Black or Colin Hanks there from that movie?
Yep.
Orange County?
What is that one about?
I don't know. I saw it, though.
It's really not there's not much in that movie.
And not
It's
memorable
this
to
guy
me.
that wants to be a writer and has some struggles.
What about the OC?
I didn't see that.
I've seen a lot of that. So is Johnny Radical, a friend of the podcast. And I'll tell you what, Johnny, I'm going to pick that thing.
I'll bet it's weird.
Before we get to episode 200, I pledge to pick that.
Well, you got 70.
The thing is, the OC will be a bit of work.
So you got to be in the right mindset for it. There in the OC, Danny and Paul have met up with Veronica, who is Danny's ex-girlfriend that they mentioned earlier, and she is very pregnant, and she's listening to Paul pitch their handyman business expertise alongside her husband, Edwin. Paul asks if they have any work needs doing, and Veronica says yes. At the exact same time, Edwin goes, no, we're good, but, we'll call you if we need anything.
Right here, I thought perhaps the actor playing Edwin was maybe too soft-spoken and too gentle with his phrasings until the story unfolds.
And you find out about Edwin.
Makes a lot of sense.
Veronica does invite Paul and Danny to her church and hands them a flyer, and they reminisce about the good old days as Edwin awkwardly looks on. He's not thrilled to have Danny in particular here.
He's immediately jealous. And I mean, that's Steven Yeun. He was nominated for an Oscar. He's a good-looking guy.
I'd be jealous too. I don't like his hair in this.
Yeah, they give him almost, it's not a buzz cut.
It's one step past a buzz. Like it's gotten a little out of control and he hasn't done anything about it yet.
And his head's too round.
And he's got the thing is also, having seen him in a bunch of stuff, he's got a good head of hair that I feel like is very stylable.
Good looking man.
And I didn't know we'd talk about Steven Yeun's hair, but we did.
Here we are.
We won't talk about Ali Wong's hair really much until we get to the Patreon episode where we cover the whole season, because she changes it.
It sure does. Yeah, when they show the flashback to the first episode at one point, I forgot when she looked like that. She looks so different later.
And yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We mentioned this last week. We will be putting all of our total thoughts on the whole season on our Patreon page, patreon.com/BooTuInc. We're going to stick to mostly just episode 2 this time around.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear that, go over there, and it's free. You don't have to pay for it. You can if you're there. But all of our Patreon stuff is free, and we'll give you the whole overview when we're done.
And we'll probably do this anytime we cover a currently airing show. We did it for Squid Game, and we'll do it when the next Squid Game season airs.
I hope it does.
Sure. Danny does get a text message from Isaac that says, call me 911. Big deal.
Yeah.
So he excuses himself into the other room to call him the baby room, as it turns out. Danny quietly asks Isaac on the phone, okay, what do you need? 911. And Isaac says, well, I just got finished taking a shit and rubbing cortisone on my back. And I would like to take this moment to thank both of you for never calling me and telling me you just took a shit and rubbed cortisone on your back. If you need to do that, do that. Don't call me and tell me.
It sounds kind of relaxing. I don't think I would mind doing that.
I'm a little stiff right now. I could go for some cortisone.
Yeah, that's the ultimate loosening up of the back, right? Mm-hmm. Empty the bowels, cortisone.
Anyway, Isaac goes on about this guy, Chad, who has gout and lives at the old family motel. And, I lent him some money for his meds, but I don't think the guy spent his money on the meds. And Danny goes, okay, you texted 911. What do you want? And so Isaac finally gets to the point after chastising him, hey, why can't we just talk? And says, hey, an Asian couple came looking for you guys. And that's what Chad told me. Danny realizes, oh, this was Amy. She was coming after me. After hanging up the phone, Danny cradles it. Do we say hanging up the phone anymore? Because it's a digital phone.
I think so. I think you still
What else would you say?
I hope we always keep that as like a remnant of what phones once were.
Because you don't physically do that anymore.
No.
You push the stop button or whatever. Well, Danny is cradling a teddy bear standing in the baby room and just, doing baby noises. And clearly he's thinking about the life he could have had. This was his ex-girlfriend he once loved, still loves likely. Obviously that door's closed, but what could have been?
And Danny is presented as the kind of guy who probably did, at his heart, if he wasn't presented with conflict, probably just does want to get married and settle down and chill out.
He wants to be a good person, but he can't be a good person.
He's kind of forced to scramble.
George and Amy are now getting ready for the big art event that is, of course, being thrown by he and his mother. And Amy tries to help her husband tie his tie, but he's clearly still really pissed off about the tire thing, so he storms off and won't let her touch him.
Like a little boy, though, which is perfect. Like I would have when I was made to do a church thing and my mom was trying to tie my tie.
Except this is an adult man.
With his wife.
Meanwhile, she has received a voicemail from Danny, so she listens in to see what he has to say.
Listen to me. I'm a dangerous guy. You're just a bored, suburban housewife with no purpose, okay? And I bet you're mad at yourself for letting your whole life pass you by. I bet you had big dreams, anything was possible. Then you blinked, and now you're stuck in a life you never wanted. You have it all, but you're empty inside. You feel weak. You want to take back control. Well, guess what? You won't take it from me, okay? I'm a fucking animal. I can't be fucked with. I do the fucking. So stop messing with me and leave me alone, or else. You hear me?
Now, this, of course, does really ring true. It hits Amy kind of hard, but she is not stopping with her revenge. So what she does is create an Instagram account featuring photos from her employee Mia, who we met previously, who said the Japanese phrase to her.
And we see her back out of naming this fake person Grace Kim a Korean name because she might realize that would be too obvious of a play. I like that because she is very bright. They're both very conniving.
Yeah, and she names it Kayla Lexington, so it's definitely a little white girl name.
The whitest name. She did a very good job there. It's like naming yourself like Chip Robinson.
But while she's stealing photos from Mia to use, she does notice her husband has liked all of Mia's pics, including one where she's just standing there in like a bikini or a bra or whatever. It's a boob pic for sure. After Amy creates the Instagram account, she sends a message to what she thinks is Danny's company, and she's flirting, I guess, because what she says is, what's it like running a big, bad construction company?
Now, who would buy that as a real come-on?
Paul, because it turns out Danny does not have access to that account. Paul does. And he immediately sends
instant
that douchebag selfie he had by the pool. He sends it back
with his company's Instagram account.
Yep.
I totally buy that this could happen too.
Sure.
That's the greatest thing.
It's great.
And he is like super confident. He's like, hell yeah, I did that right. And she's like, what the fuck is this? All right. On that note, let's go ahead and refresh our cups of beef and take a break. Danny and Paul, however, are now at Esther's house, which is a woman that Veronica and Edwin suggested as a customer for their new business. They said Esther not happy with her plumber. So Danny is busy pulling goop and hair out of Esther's very round, small bathtub. Is this like a jacuzzi tub? What is this?
I think it's just a strange little tub.
It's very weird. It's deep.
Yeah, I was very interested in it too. I don't know. I wouldn't like it though because it doesn't look like it has a shower.
Right. No, I need the shower. I don't like sitting in pools of my own goo.
Maybe I would. I've not done it since childhood.
And while Danny is pulling all this shit out of this weird tub, Paul is flirting with Esther, talking about some theme park called Hurricane Harbor where, get this, guys, there's a ride called Taboo Tower. It's got one way up, 3 ways down. It's unpredictable, like how I live my life.
And he says this all really fast. It's great.
It's hilarious.
He's just such a little hype bro.
And while he's doing this, Danny starts banging around on the tub to get Paul's attention. And when Paul gets in there, he chastises him for flirting with the customer while he does all the work. And as he's yelling at him, Paul's phone goes off and he says, hey, it's this chick named Kayla who's bad, right? But not bad. Bad means good in this scenario.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start doing that.
You should.
Like the 80s or whatever. Like, you ever listen to Boob Tube Boys? That podcast is bad. Actually, wait, I'm a little worried about saying that now. That seems like people might think it's just bad.
After Paul asks Danny that she's bad, right? Danny says, that's a bot. That's very clearly a bot. To which Paul replies, you're a bot. And he storms off, but it's not done. Then he gets on the Instagram and messages to Kayla saying, are you a bot? And she responds, no. Are you? Winky face. And he grins so big.
I love it.
He's totally convinced. He's like, well, it can't be.
This is the icing on the cake of the scene. This is all Paul needs is to say, are you a bot? And get back, no.
Like, there's no way someone who is programming a bot would think to have one answer ready for someone asking that. They would never think of that.
We are now at the chair art exhibit, which is as pretentious as you think it is. George's mom is telling the story of her late husband's green chair art piece, which is extremely integral to this story. It was apparently made specifically contoured to her ass.
Her own famous butt.
And everybody smiles. They love this tale. And the art director leads George's mother off to some other pieces, if you will. But then Jordan shows up to talk to Amy, and she's introduced to the daughter, June. Amy, George, and June are here. And the parents say, like, June, say hi to Jordan. And June is a kid, so she kind of shies away. She's like, what, 3, 4?
Yeah.
She does what kids do. So Jordan says, well, hopefully when she's older, she'll be more polite. It's so smug. Jordan asks if the whole chair story, the chair was contoured to grandma's ass or whatever, is real or not. And George gets very upset and he says, I have photos of my mom's bare ass sitting in that chair.
This is funny to me for a couple of reasons, because George is rightfully upset because Jordan's whole thing is to believe this is all, everybody's everything is shtick, right? Because you're just trying to make a buck.
She's very skeptical.
She's very cynical. And then, so George is upset, but in his reply, he's basically saying, I have pictures of my nude mother, cementing that weird relationship.
I would have to think that a chair that was designed for someone else's ass would not be a chair you would want.
Right,
you were
that's
not that
for her.
person.
It's like one of those optical print things to get into a building that scans your eye. It has to be yours.
Unless it's Demolition Man and you take the eye out with a pin and then you scan that and you're Dennis Rodman.
One of my favorite things about your Wesley Snipes, one of
That's
my
it.
favorite things about Demolition Man is there's only one fast food restaurant that made it, and it's Taco Bell.
I also like the seashell thing. Do you remember this?
I don't remember.
So Sylvester
I
Stallone's
watched
in the
this
future.
last year, actually.
Yeah, he goes to the bathroom. He's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And there's no toilet paper. There are 3 seashells. And he doesn't know how it works. And this has become like an internet thing of like, you don't know about the 3 seashells? You plebe. Anyway.
Demolition Man, it's a lot of fun. It's very weird.
That eyeball scene fucked me up when I was a kid, though. I did not care for that.
I had only seen it as a kid and then like last year.
I'd like to watch it again.
It's also very stupid, but like in a way that is delightful. In the early 90s way.
Well, after hearing that this chair story is, in fact, real, Jordan squats down and just starts rubbing all over the chair. She's got her face right up against it. And this takes too long. She looks at it for 45 seconds. It's too long before she finally says, okay, how much?
There's a lot I like about like the direction of this scene, of that lasting too long. And then we'll get to this, but the cameras move in and out a lot to show the absurdity of this whole event.
Mm-hmm.
And how serious everyone is about it.
Yeah, like deathly serious. It's really funny. And Van, you said this word earlier that is perfect, which I normally, using the word pretentious as a last resort for me, because I usually think people are trying to actually make art, though. They've meant something by doing it. This is the exact right use.
Yeah.
Because this is just nothing at all.
It's a chair. That is, I'm sorry, it's not art.
They are very literally, in this circumstance, pretending to hold an art show to make a buck off it.
Everyone has subconsciously agreed to the same rules for it, too. They all think this is real, and that's fine. It's bizarre to me.
And you get a sense, too, though, this is a thing I think this show does well because it draws complex characters, but George's mom, at one point, was she like a very thoughtful, interesting artist, but now she's just devolved into this?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Well, Jordan keeps pressing George to sell her the chair. George refuses. He says, I'm sorry, I must refuse. He's somewhat polite, but stern and kind of snotty about it. She says, $100,000. I will buy this grandma butt chair for $100,000. And again, George refuses. This pisses Jordan off. This is a woman who has everything and is never told no. So she beelines for the door. She says, well, I need to get to my friend's housewarming party. It's in Nepal. And Amy's like, well, I thought we were going to talk about the deal. Come on. And Jordan won't do it. She's clearly mad. So this makes Amy mad because by all accounts, George could have helped Amy in her venture to try and sell her business, but refused here and was too snotty about it.
And I like the tears of this, too, because like, George shouldn't have to bend to Jordan's will, but then Amy's mad at George for not bending to her will because she views it as George not supporting her. It's all backwards.
And yet, as George points out, she has asked him to stand up for himself and be more assertive,
Right.
which is what he was doing, but she didn't want him to do it then, just other times.
Yeah, it's like this whole show is like a human centipede, and they're all pooping into each other's mouths.
Like that Ninja Turtle.
Yeah. Well, I guess more they're peeing on people's floors.
Yeah.
Ninja Turtle peeing on someone's floor.
Which one do you think is the one that has the peeing on people's floor fetish?
Oh, it's got to be Raphael.
yeah.
He does all the shitty stuff.
Power move.
He is wild.
I think Michelangelo might pee on someone's floor because it's too high. That's what happened.
Oh, okay.
And then Leonardo cleans it up.
Yeah, he would never pee on someone's floor.
And Donatello's in the bedroom.
Building a machine for pee.
He does machines, Brian. Danny and Paul, on the other hand, are at some loud nightclub, and the older brother keeps trying to talk to the younger, suggesting he give up his whole, Kayla Instagram thing. And it's somewhat of like a race thing in that he's saying, you need to settle down with a nice Korean girl.
He starts out with this, like, man, you only live once. Like, you got to realize we're going to look back on this time in our lives. And then immediately shifts to like, quit trying to be young. You need to settle down and have a traditional life like mom and dad want.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's pressure that Danny feels. It is not pressure Paul feels.
He's too dumb to feel pressure.
And the pressures he feels have nothing to do with being traditional because that never occurred to him, which is a thing I actually really like about Paul.
This is actually one of Paul's best moments because Danny is clearly in a place mentally where I guess he's in a good mood. They're celebrating in his mind and they're getting drinks and he wants to have these big talks and Paul's just not feeling any of that and he's just not in that headspace at all.
Yeah, and Danny's whole thing with Paul is he really wants Paul to look up to him like some sort of, genius who's figured the world out. But Paul doesn't think that about him whatsoever, and if Danny would accept the relationship for what it is, it might work better for both of them.
And they do use some food analogies here, which I liked because, again, Danny's saying, settle down with a nice Korean girl. He says, when you're 40, 50 years old, don't you want to come home to your wife making kimchi jjigae, which is Korean soup? And Paul says, well, maybe I want my wife to come home to me making chicken parm.
Yeah.
And that's his white girl food. And I love that.
And
that
he's
was great.
making it.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And it sounds good right now, actually.
Oh, it does.
This conversation does get to where Paul says Danny wastes way too much time following arbitrary rules.
Which is funny.
Like I've been saying, find a nice Korean girl and I got to build my business before I start a family.
He's living a checklist life.
He just says, you got to live your life the way you want, just for once. Just live your life. And Danny argues back, so Paul just gets up and leaves. At the art exhibit again, Amy and George decide now's a great time to do that couple argument thing where they argue under their breath and quietly in public and pretend they're not arguing.
Because the relationship has reached a point where you can't wait 10 minutes.
She finally opens up to him, however. She says, it's almost like, George, you are actively trying to sabotage everything. You clearly don't understand what I do for the family. And he argues back and he says, I do a lot. Those vases don't make themselves. And she retorts like, well, you know what else they don't do? They don't make money.
Oh, and this is really good too, because again, he said a thing that is very stupid because that, while it's important to him, is not part of what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says a thing she does not need to say at all, shaming him for an agreement they clearly have, which is he doesn't have to work.
Well, and he says, you're absolutely obsessed with money. It's all you talk about. She tells him, I did not grow up the way you did, George. Don't you notice how only people with money are the ones who talk about how money is important? And that's a sentiment I agree with.
Any privileged person will say things like that. Well, I don't think about it that way. Or like, I've heard some privileged people say things like that about race. And it's like, well, you don't interact with anyone other than people who look and feel just like you about everything.
And you haven't experienced the negativity that being a different race or
Yeah.
sex or whatever it may be is because you've grown up in opulence, or
Right.
whatever it may be. She continues and says, I mean, look, the Buddha is only the Buddha because he was a prince first. He actually had things to renounce. Again, another salient point. They continue arguing, and we get a cut here showing that it has been some time, and now they're yelling back and forth a little bit. He says, you never empty the dishwasher. Maybe we could do it together, which is really funny to me.
It would take like 2 seconds.
It's just the dishwasher. Well, anyway, while he's complaining, she gets a message from Paul, of course, thinking she's Kayla, telling her, hey, we're at the club, you should join us. While reading it, she is certainly exasperated with George and tells him, let's just settle down and maybe we can try to enjoy the rest of this chair-based evening. And as she says this, she begins to sit down on a chair when a security guard rushes over and goes, please don't sit on the art, ma'am.
Oh, that was really funny.
She does bring up the fact, though, that George is liking her employees' Instagram photos, Mia, of course, and questions him about it. So he goes, well, I'm supporting your business. She goes, so liking Mia's bikini pics is supporting my business, huh? How? He goes, well, I don't even look at the pictures. I just read the captions, which has real, like, I get Playboy for the articles.
Yeah. Only like even less veiled than that. Because at least Playboy, I mean, they did this on purpose. They'd hire like actual authors to write short story, that you'd be like, oh, I want to. So there was that element. The idea of reading a caption that just says like, sunny day at the beach, there's no information there. Of course he's looking up at what's in there.
I would say it's not believable that somebody would be that transparent with like a crush that's not appropriate for them to like that person's Instagram. George would do that.
And not think that maybe Amy would see it.
Somehow not have the idea that it would be obvious what he was doing.
And the whole, I just read the captions. You know what it opens up? Pandora's box.
Oh no.
My. We know where that leads.
Not the computer kind.
Ruination.
she asks him, okay, why won't you just be honest with me, George? And he goes, oh, we're being honest now, right? And then he puts up his hand in an L form. Did you guys know what he meant right away? 'Cause
I
sure
didn't get it.
This is like 5 times now where I've thought someone might be about to plant that L on the forehead and call someone a loser.
He didn't. It's about the gun. And she goes, ugh, why won't you just leave the gun thing alone? It doesn't matter.
Calling your spouse a loser in an argument
And George doing that is
Yeah.
the best thing.
would be pretty funny.
They argue back and forth, and he asks her, do I need to be concerned for my daughter's safety or my safety with this gun?
A valid question.
Absolutely.
And it ends up being even more valid by the end of this.
Well, she takes a big, deep breath, collects herself, and then reveals to him that she was, in fact, masturbating with the gun. But she doesn't just say that, which I think that's okay. You reveal that, great. We've things to work on, no big deal. She goes a little further, and she says, you know why I was doing it? Because sex with you is vanilla.
I like that. There are several. I mean, the 2 main characters are mainly who we see this with, but there's a point where they've made their point in a discussion, whether they're right or wrong, and they choose to be meaner than they need to.
Because she did not need to say this. I mean, unless, and we're not privy to the previous conversations, maybe they've discussed how she's not happy in her sex life. I don't think so.
But boy,
I think she's put that face
this
on.
still wouldn't be the way to phrase
No.
it.
But the best part about it is he really doesn't glum onto that. He does mention it later, but he does go, wait a minute. Is this about the piss? She's confused for a moment, but then she goes, you know what? She thinks about it. Actually, maybe it is about the piss. This was my house. Danny came in and violated it. It's the house I bought, the house I don't get to spend time in because I'm always working. No one ever takes care of me, does anything for me. Is anybody got to buy something for Amy? No, Amy has to buy it for Amy. I just want to be taken care of for once. So let's look at this conversation, the whole of it. Both people are wrong, but both people have very valid problems in their relationship.
They're wrong and right at the same time.
And I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that about that. They're just not listening to each other for the most part.
And they can't find the nuance in the situation. You know, they can only see it from like their exact point of view, which is how you get when you've let it go this far.
You know what I think they should do is they should get a couples therapist and talk all this out.
You know, that's not a bad idea.
Well, George's response to all of this stuff that Amy has just said is, yeah, well, I don't fuck guns.
I mean, sure.
That's a good point.
He storms up. Storm is aggressive. He kind of meanders off a little bit, but then he lightly kicks one of those art chairs, not really hard.
Because he respects that they're art in this setting. Like George believes in this whole thing being art and is like, I'm not going to actually kick the art, but I am going to show my displeasure by nudging it with my foot.
Yeah.
And then a security guard immediately rushes over and fixes it. Fixes his chair.
Ending the scene with the guards running alarm to the chair that was barely moved is perfect.
This to me is hilarious physical comedy.
Yes.
Like setting up a situation resolved in a funny way like that. Yeah, it's great.
So the scene here contrasts. We've got Amy looking left and it switches to Danny looking to the right. They're both sad. They're both upset. Danny is now at the bar at this club or whatever, and he's ordering drinks. He tries to buy the bartender a drink, but the bartender goes, sorry, my boss is watching. So Danny just takes it.
There's something about Danny that rings very true to like, well, these characters, the leads are our exact age in the show. They're supposed to be. So like there's something that rings true about this like sort of faded youth of our generation where he's like, come on, do a shot with me, bartender. And the bartender's like, grow up.
And he just wants to connect with someone,
we don't
too.
do this anymore, you know?
George is now, of course, standing with a group of people off to the side, not with Amy. He's with his mother. Amy is now watching him from across the room when he has a bit of an epiphany.
I guess when you think about it, the ground is the original chair.
And this is the exact same thought we had on the Flintstones.
It absolutely is. I put right here, they're repeating our toilet wisdom.
That's right. The ground was the first chair.
So, you know, who's to say who came up with it first, us or George?
But this is one of those comedy moments that I think plays really well because it's a throwaway line, but it's utterly hilarious.
Yeah, it's really good.
Anyway, little things this show does well. Amy sends George a text while he's talking about ground chairs. And she says, since you're ignoring me, I'm going to go to the store. But back at the club, Danny gets a voicemail from her at the same time. So he listens in and she does her version of the I'm an animal message he left her and tells him, I'd love to let this go, but actions have consequences. I'm going to find you and I'm going to take what little you have.
Again, doing the same thing he did of like, there's a lot of truth in it and that Danny feels his life is empty. And she's basically saying, like, whatever's left, I'll scrape out.
And it hits him hard. He scans the club and thinks he sees her. He obviously doesn't, but it's his imagination, but he freaks out nonetheless. Paul, however, has found a couple of, and I'll use the words of Paul Verhoeven and RoboCop.
I'm curious which words these will be.
Finds a couple of bitches. Because, bitches leave, that sort of thing. Anyway, he grabs Danny with the bitches, and they go to leave the club, but in the parking lot, they find out that Amy has painted, "I can't drive," on the hood of Danny's truck. Big white paint. Well, Danny's pissed. Paul tries to tell him, fuck it, let's go back in and drink some more. But Danny is not having any of it. They tussle, and they end up saying, fuck you to one another and saying some choice words. Danny tells Paul, "You're fired from Cho Bros." But Paul says, "What's in my name? You're fired from Cho Bros." But it all boils down to Paul telling Danny, "You don't have anyone left in your life. I'm leaving. You're alone." Danny says, "You know what? I've got Isaac. He told me I could do the business in his name, so get the fuck away."
Yeah, and when you got Isaac, who else could you possibly need?
Paul doesn't like this because obviously Danny has forgiven Isaac for ruining the family business, apparently, or at least a little bit. Paul has not. Paul still really hangs on to that. So Paul says Isaac, and then just walks away.
Yeah, he's grossed out by that because he feels like this is a guy that betrayed our parents and you're just going to do business with him because you're in this state. I want to really quickly shout out that the visual of when they leave the club and Danny's walking ahead, like sweaty, clearly focusing on something else in his mind. And then behind him is Paul with two women, like just laughing and giggling. It's like a really good character moment, like showing where they're both at.
Amy then arrives home with a huge grin on her face because we know she's painted Paul's truck with the paint. Said, what was it? "I can't drive" on the front. More in a bit. She walks into the pottery studio where George is busy doing the big gloopy art thing, doing his ghost impression, of course.
It's a really good visual because this is what he does to like pout.
And he tells her, "We need to talk. I think we should do couples therapy." And just as he says it, she goes, "We should. Let's do it." And this takes him by surprise. "Really? I know you said in the past you didn't want to do that." But it's pretty clear that she is on cloud nine. She's got her revenge. She is feeling the high from that. So she's got the face back on. She's ready to get back into the minutia of it and work on everything or whatever. He's pretty excited for this, but he fucks up his pottery thing and he just goes, "Shit." And then that's it. Scene over. Tori Amos's Cornflake Girl then begins to play. We're now on the street outside of Amy's house. Danny's truck pulls up. We see that not only did Amy write "I can't drive" on the hood, but also "I am poor" on the door, as well as "I'm a bitch" on the back. It's great. So he jumps out, grabs a hammer, and you know what happens when you're holding a hammer, guys? All you see is nails.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yep.
And he turns, looks at the house, and starts walking towards it.
End of episode.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So again, quick reminder, go to patreon.com/Bootu Inc. We're going to give you a free, everything's free on there, talk about the rest of the series. We'll discuss our thoughts on it.
We're not going to be granular like we were with these two, of course, but we're just going to discuss it as a whole.
Yep, and we'll say whether we liked it, moments throughout the season, that sort of thing.
We can talk about anything that happened.
So definitely go check that out. Again, patreon.com/Bootu Inc. But I think it's an important time to ask you gentlemen, meats. We've talked about beef. We've talked about lobster meat. We've talked about, I don't know, clam. That's a meat, right? I think. Anyway.
You just completely flummoxed me. I don't know how to answer that.
What is your meat hierarchy? Let's
Clam.
go top like 3, 4, 5, whatever. What is your favorite, second favorite, third favorite meats? Brian, you're first.
Yeah, I'll explain my methodology
Okay.
before I begin. So I weighted my pure enjoyment of the meat over its utilitarian nature.
Sure.
So that skews it a little bit because my top ones aren't necessarily ones I even have hardly ever. It's just when I have them, they feel like an event to me to a degree. So I did weigh it that way, when in reality, I'm not sure if that's the best way to think about it, but maybe in the 2025 meat hierarchy reevaluation, I'll think of it differently. So up at number 1, I have a little bit of a change from the last time we did these rankings for our baseball podcast fan.
I believe you said duck, right? I think we might have both said duck.
Duck has slipped down to number 2.
Okay.
Because I've been thinking a lot about lamb.
Sure, lamb's good.
And it is up to number 1. I've had a few lamb burgers and lamb steaks in my life at Greek type, Mediterranean type restaurants that were just incredible. I think I might have even mentioned this on the podcast before, but one time I had a lamb burger at a restaurant in St. Louis before seeing Built to Spill. And at the restaurant, they had a big projector that was projecting Bushwhacked with Daniel Stern on it.
Oh, I sure remember that part of the story.
It was just a monumental occasion in my life. So lamb 1, duck 2. I actually do have beef at 3, which is surprising to me, but I've been eating a lot of tacos recently. And it is, I like steaks, I like burgers, 4, I have chicken, the ultimate versatile meat. I love it, but it can go dry, and it does need a lot of help from other things.
Gotta season that shit.
Yeah, the same thing that makes it versatile, unfortunately, keeps it low only due to my current methodology. And then at number 5, I've got pork. A pretty standard choice here, but I do like bacon. I like pork by itself every now and then. I stuck with mostly your standard mainstream meats here. I didn't want to get too off in the weeds.
All right, sounds great.
It's pretty exotic, though, for considering what I've decided I'm going to do. I will go ahead and put pork number 1 because of its breakfast value. And I'm a big breakfast person, and I love any kind of sausage sort of breakfast theme. And of course, the uses for bacon. I just can't resist the breakfast appeal of pork. Otherwise, I'm not sure it's that great. I don't think for any other meals it really serves as much of a purpose.
I actually didn't know what you were going to go with, but
I really didn't know either.
This makes a lot of sense.
This just happened in the moment.
You are a breakfast boy.
I'm a breakfast man. I'm a boob tube boy.
Oh, I messed it up.
Oh, okay.
No, I can be a breakfast boy. It does have alliteration, so I like that. But so I'm going to put pork because I like breakfast. And secondly, it's just really hard because I'm not really an exotic meat guy, but I do like all the regular ones quite a bit. I will say chicken is number 2 because it is just so good in anything at all. And it's perfect for rice. It's perfect for anything non-breakfast, actually. Unless you're going to have one of those fried chicken sort of style breakfast sandwiches, I think it's fucked up to have chicken for breakfast.
You are right. And I don't know why that is, because it actually seems like a neutral meat that would be good on your stomach. That would make sense in the morning, but I don't like to have it in the morning either.
It doesn't make sense. And I mean, you can't have an egg and then the thing that laid it too in the same meal.
I seriously wonder if there's a taste bud reason that's weird.
I mean, it's fine.
Chickens, right in. Let us know.
I like chicken. I'm going to put it number 2. Number 3, this is really hard because I don't know if I can really go that much deeper without hitting beef because burgers, and honestly, not often that I have a steak, but it's always enjoyable when I do. I think I'm going to have to put beef 3. And then I don't know that I could sincerely put any others on there because I like turkey meat, but it's not special. It's fine. I like the deli meat for sandwiches, and I do actually get ground turkey when I don't want to just eat beef all the time. Okay, fine, I'll put turkey as 4.
Okay.
You guys made me, so I'll do it. I was getting some weird looks.
I didn't put this or even think of it until now, but another separate category, I really like deli type meats like your salamis, your pepperonis that are combo weird meats. Hey, I watched those Godfathers. Now I'm going to start talking like that.
Now.
Your pepperonis, your salamis.
So that's really it. And I think mine also work as pizza toppings too, because you do have to factor in, since pizza is probably the greatest food, how these meats work on pizzas. And those all hold up. I do like sausage pizzas best. So I think I did right by myself in my meat hierarchy.
Very good. Well, I do have a bit of a surprise for number 1.
Yeah,
mine has changed a lot.
Yours was chicken when mine was duck, probably, and this has been probably 3 years ago.
I think it's longer than that, but it's been a while.
Maybe 8.
Well, yes, I had chicken first in the past because chicken is a very versatile meat to me. Maybe it's not the best individually, but man, I go for chicken anytime. I eat a lot of chicken because it's simple protein. So I'll do that. White meat, chicken breast, whatever it may be. Although dark meat's better.
I don't want to hijack this, but I just want to point out you don't do this anymore, but it did bother me around the time when I was first getting to know you that you dipped your chicken strips into ketchup. Didn't like it.
I don't do that anymore.
I know you don't. You fixed it, but I just have to point out you used to do that and I didn't like it.
No,
what's your preferred strip dipper?
Probably a good barbecue sauce.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm going to back up. I do love a good barbecue sauce, but in fact, Katie and I had Huey Magoo's. Have you had that recently?
It's like a chicken but joint. I haven't had it.
I kind of don't want to because the owner is a piece of garbage, but every owner is now.
Well, he sounds like he's an old-timey man with a monocle.
Well, they have good chicken strips is basically what it is, but they have this sweet heat, I don't know how to describe it, but it's such a good sauce.
Oh, I love sweet
has
heat.
A sauce
yes.
So
it's
good.
Very similar. Anyway, that's great. Chicken is no longer my number 1. It's still up there. I like chicken. I'm pivoting because it's a meat I don't get often, and it's not one that either of you said or maybe even thought about. Shrimp.
Oh, yeah, I love shrimp.
Shrimp's my number 1.
I didn't think about seafood, which I love seafood.
And I don't. Shrimp is the only one I can do. I can't do fish. I wish I could, but I
should have said tuna. I love tuna.
You like tuna, huh? Well, I'm going shrimp number 1.
Fucking lobster.
I'm going to go duck number 2. And these are, again, both, I won't say exotic. Shrimp's not exotic. Duck is a little bit more so, but I don't eat them off.
Kind of like my thing. Like either treats.
Yes. Chicken is coming at number 3. Versatile,
This is
staple
big.
in my diet, but it's there. I like it. Then I'm going beef, and I'm not the biggest beef proponent. I do love a good steak. I do love ground beef in a burger or whatever it may
From
be.
Burger King, perhaps?
Exactly.
Sponsor
How
of the
about
show now. No,
That
not
big
really.
pile of whatever weird meat Taco Bell uses in some of their burritos, really good.
I guess if that's meat, yeah. But yes,
I
precisely.
don't think it is like 100% meat, right?
There's some in there.
It's a brown clump.
A meat byproduct.
It's good. I like it.
But then number 5, I put pork. I'm not even confident in that because I don't really like pork that much. But I just felt like rounding it out with a nice even 5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're all right.
We all like meat. I wish I didn't rely on meat as much as I do,
Me
but
too.
it's how I've grown up, and I try to change that
It's
a little
where
bit.
we're at. I
but
love
it's tough. Oh, actually, I do. There's this stuff I get at the local store that is some sort of plant-based chicken-style meat that has Cajun seasoning on it. I eat that with rice 2-3
Cajun
times a week.
seasoning
It's good.
gets me on anything.
Do you guys know any fictional characters throughout history that might enjoy a Cajun seasoned food?
Maybe someone from the bayou.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not someone who has birds pick food out of his teeth.
Mhm.
Probably not that
I
someone.
wouldn't think so.
But that also brings up the sister to shrimp, the crayfish,
Oh, yeah.
which is also pretty good, but you have to purge them.
Is that the
otherwise they're
stuff
too
you're
gritty.
supposed to eat their brains because
Yeah,
they're real juicy?
You slurp it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't do
I don't
that.
like that. I just eat the tail.
My childhood family reunions on my dad's side, there were a lot of children, including myself, trying to pick crawdads out of a little ravine.
Could you do it? I don't see you as a guy who could grab them. I can't.
I think that I did. I think I was able to do it, but maybe not. I
I
don't
can see
know.
you hesitating and taking a while, and then you
It
finally
doesn't
catch
sound
one.
right that I would, though, because I didn't like to get my hands dirty.
I don't
Right.
like it now.
Well,
I
for the
don't
longest
now,
time,
yeah.
like with chicken wings,
Yeah.
the sauce you'd eat with like a fork and
With
I'm
a napkin,
I'm not judging.
with a napkin around my hand.
Yes, because I get it. I don't like things on my hands too, but I was never quite to that extreme of a degree. But yeah, crawdads, I'll catch
I
them all the
still
time.
have I consider myself, a fairly responsible person when it comes to my usage of things out in the world, but I take a wild amount of showers just due to my sensory problems with always
Sure.
feeling like there's something on me or something.
Showers are great too. Love showers. All right, well, that's going to do it for the meat hierarchy segment of the show. Before we reveal the next show we'll be covering, I just want to say, everybody out there, again, go to patreon.com/Bootu Inc. You'll get the bonus show. You get all bonus shows. It's free, or you can pay us.
Hear the rest of our beef thoughts. Also, before I introduce the new show, at this point, after watching 2, where were you guys with it? With beef?
Loved it.
Yeah, me too. I was certain that I would have watched the rest, even if we weren't talking about it for the podcast.
Where we left off is a perfect point where I don't think you can see these 2 episodes and not keep going.
No.
Like where he's going up to the house with the hammer, you know it's going to escalate. You don't know to what degree. And you couldn't just be like, I've seen enough.
I felt that I would watch the rest of Squid Game too, but I do think I felt it more.
Oh,
More here.
definitely.
Yeah.
I felt more, into it.
Yep, for sure. Also, go to bootuinc.com. We've got articles and, every podcast episode has its own page. We write descriptions, cool stuff there. Go check it out. Good reads. What are your things?
Yeah, Loud Guitar Brian for me.
Golden Hat Mick.
See what we're reading. Be our friends. And I'm on Letterboxd also at Loud Guitar Brian. You can see what movies I'm watching and see what movies we watch as a group to have chuckles at after we record.
That's right. It's a lot of fun.
And then you can see those movies and watch them too and join us on our Discord and talk about it.
That's right. The Discord link is available on bootuinc.com. Just click on it, join in, chat with us. It's us 3. We got Johnny Radical on there. Maybe Katie will join us one day. She's mentioned it. We'll see. Get in there, chat with us. And then finally, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. I really thought my brain was going to get there, but it hasn't. So I'm going to keep rambling until I figure out that you should leave us an iTunes rate and review. 5 stars. Tell us your meat hierarchy, and we'll get tattoos of meat all over our bodies.
Actually, that's a good thing to get anyway.
Yeah, big T-bone on your bicep. Because if you haven't seen us, we're all very muscular.
I have bicep tattoos, and
I thought you were going to say I have biceps.
barely, but they have tattoos on them, and it's quite the thing to look at because I have skinny arms. Anyway, what's our next show, Brian? Or Spencer?
It's Brian. Brian he picked this for you, and now he's picking one for him.
We're done. We're out of hot potato.
Picking one for it's hot potato, but I pick for myself.
One for you, one for me. Well, you see, fabric of life don't always feel good against a man's skin. Not when he's already working hard to keep his demons close and the devil closer. Well, you're not going to find the answers you want, not staring down the barrel of no Baywatch or Matlock or no Steven Universe. Nah, if you want to know what makes you tick, what makes this earth go round and round, well, we're going to have to talk about the concept of time and why it works and how it's a flat circle.
Oh, okay. I see.
And we're going to have to talk about True Detective, Season 4.
Oh.
Season 4.
Night
Okay.
Country.
Ooh, this is the one that's currently going?
It just
with,
began. Jodie Foster is
Foster.
the star. It's only 2 episodes in.
Oh, wow.
We're going to cover the first 2.
That's
wow,
cool.
yeah, interesting.
This is an anthology show, so you don't need to know anything about previous seasons. Although there's a bit of lore. We'll talk about that. I have watched these already. I'm super ass into it.
It's good again, right? That's what I've heard. Because what season was bad?
2 is the one everyone thinks is bad. I still found it entertaining, even though it might be bad.
It was fine.
Who was in that one?
That was
Colin
Vince
Farrell,
Vaughn.
Vince Vaughn.
Okay.
3 is pretty good. Mahershala Ali is in it.
Yep.
But this one feels tonally more in line with the first season, which is your Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson season.
Which was groundbreaking and everybody
Yeah, it was
loved
great. There are some complaints people have we'll get into. They're not complaints I have. This shit is right up my alley. The first episode, it's just called Part 1. In Ennis, Alaska, 8 men that operate a research station vanish. To solve the case, Chief Danvers and Navarro will have to confront the darkness themselves and dig into the haunted truths that lie buried underneath the eternal ice. Yeah. So, to say this in plain speak, night season has begun in Alaska, in a small town with no reach
yeah.
That's
anywhere
always
else.
a good setting.
Aurora Borealis.
And there's a
Borealis.
research station trying to figure out actual, like, kind of, I'll say Fountain of Youth type shit.
Oh,
And then they're all gone suddenly, in a Thing type twist. So there's a bit of a mystery afoot, and yeah, lots of it. John Hawkes is in this, character actor John Hawkes. Yeah, it's really good. Episode 2, Part 2, while Connolly threatens to transfer the Tilal case to Anchorage, Navarro and Danvers make a discovery that brings the former colleagues closer together.
Aw.
Yeah. These are on Max.
It's a heart-shaped rock
Yeah.
that they see it and they're like, well, that means love. Now
Yeah.
we're closer.
These are on Max. So these are the 2 newest shows we've ever done back to back.
I'll tell you what.
Modernizing.
I've never seen True Detective. I've long wanted to. You're forcing me to do it, and I appreciate that. I like that. You forced me to watch Beef. I am really bad because I'm so busy all the time with this podcast and everything about watching shows or movies I want to, and this is making me do it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, this is honestly, I think I said this when I mentioned picking Beef for you. That's part of why I did this. I was like, I kind of just want to I won't maybe do it otherwise. Like, this will force us to watch some stuff that might be fun to talk about in a different way than what we normally do.
All right. Well, look forward to that the next couple of weeks. I implore everyone once again to go listen to our patreon.com/Bootu Inc., BOOTUINC bonus episode where we talk about beef some more. It's going to be great. Spencer, how many clams and oysters do you think you could eat in one sitting?
0, because I wouldn't do it.
Brian?
14.
0. I'm with Spencer on this one. I don't like any
So
of that.
disgusting.
I could eat a clam, but oyster, no thank you. Where you're salty.
Ugh. You
No
see them
thanks.
coming out of there slowly at their own pace. I don't like that.
Pop that shit right in my talker.